The galaxy was wide and bright, filled with silver stations and blue planets, but in many places there was one soft whisper that moved from world to world. It moved through markets, spaceports, war rooms, and dark bars. It was spoken by traders, pirates, soldiers, and simple workers. The whisper was only one word, but that word carried fear and respect inside it. Humans. No one said the word loudly. They said it the way someone speaks the name of a storm, or the name of a fire that still burns far away but might come closer. Aliens with many eyes looked over their shoulders when they said it. Even brave captains lowered their voices when they spoke about humans. Some aliens thought humans were feared because of their special forces. They had heard stories about elite human units that dropped into war zones like falling stars. Those stories were already frightening. But the truth was stranger. The galaxy did not fear human special forces the most. The galaxy feared human regular soldiers, simple ones, ordinary ones. The ones with old boots, scratched armor, tired eyes, and small badges. They were not covered in shining metal. They did not carry rare weapons. Many of them were young. Many of them were far from home for the first time. And yet, when someone said regular human troops, voices shook. In one busy station, a small alien child listened to the grown-ups speak. His father was once a soldier. His skin had scars that did not heal right, and his hands sometimes trembled. The child pulled his father's sleeve and asked in a curious, innocent voice, "Father, why are they afraid of the regular ones? Are the specials not stronger?" The father closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered smoke rising over a broken city. He remembered the smell of burned metal and dust. He remembered hearing calm human voices moving through the chaos, talking to each other like workers fixing a roof instead of fighters in the middle of war. He saw again in his mind human soldiers walking through fire, not because they did not feel fear, but because they refused to stop. He opened his eyes and answered softly, "Because special soldiers are trained to be heroes, but regular humans, they do not break." The child did not fully understand, but the father did not explain more. Some things were easier to feel than to say. Across the galaxy, alien generals met around glowing maps. Red marks showed lost cities. Blue marks showed broken fleets. Many maps had the same small symbol on them, simple and plain. It meant one thing: human infantry landed here. In many war schools on many worlds, teachers wrote one rule on the board: if humans send their special forces, retreat if you can. If humans send only their regular soldiers, run before it is too late. The rule spread faster than light. Stories followed it. Stories about humans laughing in the middle of danger. Stories about humans who kept fighting after losing blood. Stories about humans who carried enemies to safety because they were still people. Stories about humans who did not stop when orders ended, who did not stop when leaders fell, who did not stop when hope fell. One trader told the story of a ship damaged so badly that any other species would have surrendered. The humans inside held the broken ship together with tools and hands and will. They joked while doing it. They called it a bad day at work. They survived. Another story spoke of human soldiers trapped in ice storms that froze machines. Other armies would have waited to die. The humans sang, shared food, wrapped each other in blankets, and moved again when the storm ended. No one could understand how they rose. The galaxy came to believe one simple thing: humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the largest. But when everything went wrong, when everything hurt, when the world felt like it was ending, humans kept going. They were not unafraid. They were afraid and still moved forward. Some aliens thought that was the most terrifying strength of all. As word spread, a question also spread with it. What had the galaxy seen the first time regular human soldiers arrived on a battlefield? What happened there that made even the bravest admirals speak carefully afterward? What did ordinary human troops do that turned their name into a warning? Across the stars, the answer was not written in one book. It was carried in the eyes of those who saw it. It lived in the quiet of war rooms, in the long pauses before someone said humans. It lived in memories that did not fade. Now the story turns back to that first meeting, that first war, that first landing of ordinary human soldiers on alien soil. It was there, long ago, that the galaxy learned a truth it would never forget. Humans might call them regular, but there is nothing regular about them at all. The war did not begin with loud music or great speeches. It began with fear, silence, and smoke. On the green world of Lether 4, people lived simple lives. They grew tall crystal plants and sang songs at night under 2 moons. They did not want soldiers. They did not want flags. They wanted peace, but peace did not want them. A cruel empire came from the dark side of the stars. Their ships were sharp and black, like knives moving through space. They did not talk. They did not warn. They landed and took what they wanted. They broke homes. They burned fields. They told the people of Lether 4, "You now belong to us." The local defense tried to fight. Their ships rose into the sky and fell as burning light. Their tanks rolled forward and then stopped forever. The people watched their army disappear in one long day. So they called the Galactic Alliance, the Alliance. Promised help, but help came slowly. Meeting after meeting, speech after speech, paper moved, words moved. The Empire did not wait for words. They only waited for more worlds to take. When Alliance soldiers finally arrived, they brought heavy machines and bright armor. They were proud, they were trained. They were many, they still lost. The Empire broke them line by line. The ground shook with their weapons. The sky burned red at night. Hope turned thin like old paper in a dark room under the main city, the Lethari. Council gathered. Their faces were tired. Their voices were low. One old counselor said, "We have only one choice left." The room went quiet. No one wanted to speak the word, but everyone felt it. Humans. A younger leader asked, "Should we request special forces?" The answer came back from the Alliance channel, cold and simple. Human special forces are already deployed on 3 fronts. They cannot come. A longer silence followed. The counselor asked again, slowly, "What about regular troops?" There was a pause on the other side of the call. Then the voice answered, "Regular infantry units are available." Some council members looked confused. Others were pale with fear. One whispered, "Regular humans?" Another said, "But they are only basic soldiers." A third one said, "We should refuse. We need elite units, not simple troops." But outside the bunker, the city shook again. Dust fell from the ceiling. Children cried in tunnels. The Empire was not waiting for perfect choices. The oldest counselor closed his eyes and signed the request. "Call the regular humans," he said. Days passed. People watched the sky and waited. Rumors spread through bunkers and camps. "They are sending humans. Special ones?" "No, regulars." Some laughed nervously. Some prayed. Some shook. Then, one morning, alarms rang. A single ship appeared in the sky, not a grand fleet, not a shining flagship. Just one transport ship, old and scarred. The paint was faded. One engine coughed before steadying. It looked tired, like it had seen too many journeys and still had to fly one more time. The ramp opened. No golden armor. No glowing eyes. No super soldiers. Just people. They walked down in simple gear, helmets clipped to belts, coffee cups in hands, backpacks hanging from one shoulder. One soldier yawned. Another laughed at a small joke. A sergeant checked a crumpled list. A medic carried too many bags and apologized when one fell. An alien officer stared at them with wide eyes. He had heard the stories. He had imagined giants or monsters. Instead, he saw faces that looked ordinary, human faces. A little tired, a little bored. These are the ones the galaxy fears? He thought. A young human waved politely at him. Morning, she said, as if arriving at a normal workplace. Alien tried to speak, but his mouth was dry. He finally asked, "Where is your elite team?" A human sergeant answered calmly, "We are not elite. We are just regulars." He said it like it was nothing, but soon everyone would learn the truth. They were not just anything. They were regular humans. The first shock did not come from guns or explosions. It came from how the humans behaved. The enemy attacked at dawn. The sky over Letherfor turned orange as ships burned across the clouds. The ground shook like a living thing. Buildings broke. Alarms screamed, and dust filled the air until it tasted like metal and smoke. Most armies, when facing such a storm, would hide, freeze, or run. The regular human soldiers did not. They moved calmly, not slow, not rushed, just steady like people. Starting a hard job they had done many times before. One alien officer watched from behind sandbags, his heart beating too fast. He saw human infantry walk into position while shells fell around them. One soldier was chewing gum. Another was arguing about coffee. A third was adjusting a picture of his family inside his armor. None of them looked like legends, yet none of them stepped back. The first wave of enemy fire hit. The air became loud light. A human was knocked down. Dust rose around him. The alien officer gasped. Surely the human was finished. But the soldier pushed himself back up with a small sigh, brushed his sleeve, and said through his radio, "I'm good. Continue. No drama, no shouting. No heroic music. Just continue." A medic ran to him, but the soldier shook his head and pointed at another injured alien. "Help him first," he said, pressing his own bandage down with one hand. "He's worse." The medic hesitated. The human repeated more gently, "Go." The alien who was saved never forgot that moment. The second shock came when the humans started talking during battle. They spoke like workers fixing a road, like builders lifting bricks. "Left side, 2 more, one said. "Copy." "Need a hand?" "Always." They joked under fire. One explosion hit close. A human landed flat in the mud and shouted, "I did not sign up for free dirt baths." Another answered, laughing even as he fired back, "Complaints after victory, private." The alien officer could not understand it. His own people were trained to be silent and stiff. Humans joked, argued, teased, and still never lost focus. It was as if humor was armor you could not see. Then came the third shock. The enemy used fear weapons. Sirens that twisted sound, dark drones that screamed, lights that flashed patterns meant to break minds. Many armies had collapsed under them. Some species fainted, some froze, some dropped weapons and begged. Humans stopped for 1 second. Then they got angry. One human shouted over the noise, "Who brought the broken radio?" Another said calmly, "Ignore it. Follow my voice." They formed small groups, hands tapping shoulders in the smoke, guiding each other with simple words. Here. Step. Down. Up. They did not let fear choose their actions. They felt it and kept moving with it, not away from it. An alien soldier hiding behind rubble saw a human with shaking hands reload his rifle. The human was afraid. It was clear. But he still stood up to protect strangers he had met only hours ago. That alien whispered to himself, "They fear and still go." And he understood a little more. By midday, the battlefield changed shape. The enemy expected humans to rush wildly. They didn't. They thought. They watched. They adapted. A Paginto Rushdie adapted. Group of human engineers crawled under damaged vehicles, tied ropes to broken machines, and turned them into shields. A few regular soldiers used old parts to make traps. One took a door from a ruined house, laughed and said, "Portable cover," before walking forward with it, with rope, with tape, with hands, with stubborn minds that refused the word. Impossible. Another shocking thing happened next. A wounded enemy soldier was left crying on open ground. The Empire did not care to save its own. Most armies would ignore an enemy. A human ran to him. The alien officer shouted, "No, he is the enemy." The human shouted back, "Right now he is bleeding." He dragged the enemy to safety while fire fell around them. When the rescued enemy asked, voice weak, "Why?" the human just said, "Because someone would do the same for my brother, I hope." The alien officers watching all this felt something strange. Fear, but not the fear of monsters. The fear of people who refused to be less than what was right. When night finally came, the enemy expected the humans to sleep in terror or cry quietly. In tunnels. Instead, the humans built small fires in safe pockets. They shared dry food. They wrapped aliens and each other in spare blankets. They talked about Earth, rain, dogs, oceans, warm kitchens, loud cities, people they loved. They missed hunger, not weaker. One alien lieutenant listened from the shadows. He heard a human say softly before sleeping, "We hold tomorrow, not maybe. Just we hold tomorrow." The alien lieutenant finally understood why the galaxy whispered. Special forces were trained to be strong. Regular humans chose to be strong again and again. In pain, in fear, in cold, in fire. And the galaxy had only begun to see what that choice could do. The enemy commanders believed they knew every kind of soldier in the galaxy. They had studied warrior insects, stone-skinned brutes, cold machine armies, and silent assassins. They believed humans would be the same as any other race once they were tired, hungry, and hopeless. They were wrong. By the third day of fighting on Lether 4, something strange began to happen. The conditions grew worse, not better. The enemy cut supply lines. Food became rare. Water had to be carried from far ruins. The cold nights wrapped the camps like claws. Fear became a steady shadow that followed every step. Most armies break slowly in those conditions. The humans did not break. They changed. They adapted like water poured into a new shape. One alien officer watched in confusion as humans made a kitchen from broken metal and bricks. They boiled bitter leaves into tea, tasted it, made a face, and then laughed. A soldier held out the cup to an alien child, smiling. "Not great," he said, "but warm." Their humor did not match the situation. The city was half destroyed. The sky was gray with smoke, yet they found ways to be human. They told stories about things that sounded small but warm. Home-cooked meals, cheap music, pets that chewed shoes, mothers who called too often, and somehow this warmth became a weapon the enemy could not see but could feel. The fourth night, the enemy launched a psychological attack. Broadcasts filled the air, promising doom, speaking in cruel voices. "You are surrounded, you will starve, you will freeze. Give up." Some alien allies covered their ears and trembled. The humans listened for a minute, then a human corporal switched on a small music player. A simple song began to play, slow, steady, brave. Others joined in with soft voices. The fear voices on the broadcast kept talking, but the humans simply turned them down and sang louder. An alien sergeant stared at them. "You do not hear it?" he asked. A human nodded. "We hear it, we just do not believe it." That was the difference. The enemy tried darkness next. They cut power to whole districts until the city was nothing but black shapes. For many species, the dark brings panic. Something ancient inside them remembers hunters in the night. Humans lit small lamps. They made jokes about power bills. They sent patrols into the dark as if walking into fog on a familiar morning. There, voices guided each other through ruined streets. Left. Step down. Watch your head. In the dark, they were not alone. They were together, and that changed everything. Then the weather turned. Ice rain began to fall, sharp like needles. Wind howled through broken windows and hollow buildings. The kind of cold that enters bones spread across the lines. Machines froze. Guns jammed. A normal army would slow. Humans moved faster. They wrapped themselves in anything. Curtains from ruined homes, tablecloths, extra shirts. They stamped their feet and kept moving, kept fixing, kept lifting. They shared gloves, hats, heat packs, and bad jokes. One alien soldier's hands shook so hard he could not hold his rifle. A human knelt, took the rifle gently, and warmed the alien's hands in his own. "Breathe," the human said softly. "Cold lies. It tells you it will last forever. It doesn't." The alien believed him without knowing why. The enemy commanders watched and grew uneasy. "These are not elites," one muttered. "These are not enhanced. These are not born warriors. They should be failing." But instead, something terrifying was happening. They were improving under pressure. They learned the enemy's patterns. They adjusted routes. They built better. Cover every day. They shared every lesson. When one human discovered something useful, every other human knew within hours. They did not need orders to help each other. They simply acted, and another truth rose. Quiet but powerful. Humans did not fight only because they were told to. They fought because someone beside them might fall if they didn't. An enemy drone recorded something the commanders later watched many times. It showed 3 humans carrying one wounded alien on a door they had turned into a stretcher. They walked through fire, through broken streets, slipping, coughing, but never putting them down. The drone's audio caught the human sergeant saying, "No one gets left. Not no human. No one." That sentence broke something inside the enemy. High command, because soldiers who fight for pay can be bought, and soldiers who fight for flags can be confused. But soldiers who fight for each other do not stop when they are supposed to. One alien lieutenant, once afraid of humans, now spoke with quiet awe. "Special forces are built," he said. "These ones built themselves." He looked across the battlefield at regular humans, not shiny, not perfect, not super, but walking forward again and again, tired and brave at the same time. And in that moment, he finally understood the whisper that spread across the galaxy. The galaxy does not fear human strength, it fears the human will. It fears that when everything is taken away, warmth, comfort, safety, even hope, humans stand up anyway, look at the next dawn, and say, "We go." Asterisk. The battle did not turn with a single blast or grand speech. It turned the way dawn replaces night. Slowly at first, then all at once. By the 7th day, both sides were exhausted. Smoke hung over Lether 4 like a second sky. Streets were broken. Walls were open like cracked teeth. The cruel empire believed humans would finally slow, finally bend, finally accept limits. Instead, the humans began to smile more. That was the first sign. Not wide, happy smiles, tired. Stubborn ones. The kind a person wears when they know the hardest part is in front of them, and they have already decided to walk through it. A young alien scout watched regular human soldiers gather on a rough map scratched in dust. No holograms, no glowing displays, just lines made with a stick. A human sergeant pointed with a gloved finger. "Here they push," he said. "So here we don't move back, not an inch." Another soldier added, "We don't need to outrun. Then we hold. They break." Aliens listened, confused, hold. Against walkers, drones, and heavy cannons. But the humans were not planning something flashy. They were planning something simple and frightening. They would refuse to lose. The enemy attacked again with tall metal walkers, machines that made the ground tremble and hearts shake. Their shadows crawled across shattered buildings. Many species would have scattered. Humans leaned forward. Not back, forward. They moved like builders working on a dangerous roof. Careful, focused, alive. Engineers crawled under rubble with toolkits. Regular infantry dragged cables through alleys. Someone found an old ground vehicle, half crushed, and laughed. "Still runs," he said, turning the engine until it coughed back to life. "Ugly, but runs." They used it as moving cover. They used doors as shields. They used broken pipes as ladders. They used the city itself as a partner. The enemy's greatest weakness was simple. They thought war was about weapons. Humans knew war was about people, and people think, and people adapt. A group of human mechanics worked without sleep, hands black with oil and dust. They cut open captured enemy drones, rewired parts, and sent them back buzzing in the wrong direction. Human snipers didn't shoot wildly. They shot carefully, calmly, like hunters taking bad weather into account. An alien officer asked a human lieutenant, "Where are your reinforcements?" The human shrugged lightly. "We are the reinforcements." He said it without pride, only as fact. Rain began to fall, not soft rain, but heavy, angry rain that turned streets into rivers of mud. Armies hate mud. Wheels spin, ankles twist. Humans laughed. Children from muddy worlds learn early. Mud is annoying, not unbeatable. One human slipped, fell face first, and came up dripping with brown water. He spat mud and shouted, "The planet threw a punch!" His friends laughed while pulling him back up. The sound of their laughter carried through fear like a knife through paper. The enemy walkers sank. Human regulars advanced. Step by step, boot by boot. No rush, just certainty. They planted small flags not to claim land but to mark safe paths for others. Medics worked like quiet storms, moving fast and speaking softly. A wounded alien grabbed one medic's sleeve and whispered, "Why do you keep coming back?" The medic answered, "Because you're still here." That was enough. The turning point came in one ruined square. The enemy brought everything: heavy fire, drones, shock weapons meant to crack minds. Dust rose so thick that shapes disappeared inside it. When the smoke cleared, the enemy expected to see humans gone. Instead, they saw humans standing closer than before, bandaged, bruised, still there. The enemy commander felt something break inside his chest that no doctor could fix. He had believed numbers won wars. He had believed fear ruled all hearts. He had never met people who refused those rules. Then news spread through the empire, ranks like fire in dry grass. The humans are advancing, not special forces. Not elite commandos, regulars, just regular soldiers. Walking forward because someone behind them could not run and someone beside them needed them to stay. The Empire soldiers began to hesitate. That small hesitation was everything. Humans saw it. They did not cheer. They simply pressed on, forward through rain, forward through fire, forward through the voice in every mind that whispers, "Stop." They answered that voice with one word: no. That was when the battle truly turned, not on the field, but inside hearts. Humans did not become less tired. They simply became more decided. They did not become fearless. They simply refused to obey fear. At sunset, a human sergeant stood on a broken wall, looking over lines slowly moving in the right direction at last. He said quietly into his radio, "We hold, we push, we finish." There was no shouting, no speech, just a calm promise. Aliens who fought beside them would remember this forever. Not the biggest gun, not the brightest armor, but the sight of ordinary humans in rain and smoke choosing, again and again, to stand, to lift, to move forward. That was the moment the galaxy understood. You do not win against humans simply by fighting them. To win against humans, you would have to teach them how to quit. And no one in the galaxy knew how to do that. The Empire had numbers, machines, and cold doctrine. They had manuals that spoke about fear as a weapon and surrender as a goal. What they did not have, what they did not even understand, was what stood in front of them. On Lether 4, ordinary humans who had already decided not to lose. On the 10th day, the Empire launched what they called the final strike. It was meant to crush spirit, not bodies. They filled the sky with dark ships until daylight dimmed. Sirens screamed. Ground cannons shook the earth. Loudspeakers poured out words designed to crawl into the soul. You are surrounded. You will not be rescued. Your cause is lost. Other armies had broken under such sound. The humans answered in the simplest way. They turned the volume down. One human private smacked the side of a speaker with his palm and said, "Annoying radio." Another taped over a siren with cloth to muffle the scream. A third leaned back against rubble and took a long sip from cold coffee, then said, "Then we fight surrounded." It was not bravado. It was acceptance. It was peace inside a storm. The Empire had always believed fear was a wall. To humans, fear was weather. You got wet, you shivered, and you kept walking. The Empire's next move was worse. They sent forward their shock troops, towering armored figures who had never once been defeated in open streets. They expected panic. They expected retreat. They got organization. Regular humans moved like water around stone. Squads shifted, covered each other, and spoke with calm voices. Engineers marked weak points with chalk. Medics already had paths cleared before the wounded fell. A human sergeant's voice cut through. The noise, small steps, stay breathing, stay thinking. They did. A shock trooper slammed a human to the ground. Instead of screams, the trooper heard a dry voice from another human. "Hey, that's my teammate." 3 more regulars were already there. No shouting, no dramatic charge, just absolute refusal to leave a friend behind. They pushed the trooper back with teamwork, cables, and grit. Not heroism that shines like gold. Heroism that looks like a hand grabbing your wrist when you slip. The Empire commanders watched the feeds and felt unease grow into dread. Their troops were stronger. Their armor was thicker. But their soldiers fought because they were ordered to. Humans fought because the person next to them mattered. Orders can be broken. Love cannot. Then came the moment that cracked the Empire's pride. A human squad found themselves cut off in a ruined courtyard. Drones circled above. Walls were too high to climb quickly. The Empire commander smiled. He ordered every gun to focus on that small trapped group. The humans formed a circle. Not to defend themselves, to protect the civilians hiding behind them. One human knelt to speak to a frightened alien child. "Close your eyes during the loud parts," he said gently. "Think about your favorite place. We'll get you there." The child whispered, "Are you not afraid?" The human smiled with tired honesty. "I am. We just don't stop." The Empire opened fire, and still the circle held. A door exploded, rubble fell, smoke rolled over the square like a wave, and when it cleared, the humans were still there, shields up, bodies leaning toward danger instead of away from it. One soldier, bleeding but standing, called out, "We're here. Stay behind us." Something broke then, but not in humans. It broke in the Empire soldiers watching from behind their helmets. They had been taught that pain ends will, that pressure breaks resolve, that fear is the final blade. They were watching those ideas fail. A young Empire trooper dropped his weapon. Another stepped back. A third whispered into his helmet, "They don't fall. They just don't fall." Retreat started not with orders but with footsteps. Humans didn't chase at first. They held ground, checked the wounded, counted heads twice, and only when everyone was safe did they move forward again, steady, inevitable, like a tide that does not ask permission. News ran ahead of them like wind. Regular humans are advancing. Regular humans do not surrender. Regular humans protect even enemies. Regular humans keep coming. One Empire officer tore his medals off in anger and fear. "They are not special units," he shouted. "They are not enhanced." A calm aide answered, shaking, "That is why they scare us." At dusk, rain washed the smoke from the streets. Humans walked through broken avenues carrying stretchers, equipment, and when needed each other. They did not chant victory. They did not pose like statues. They looked like workers at the end of a long shift, still going because the work was not done. A human lieutenant sat down on a cracked step for 30 seconds, head in his hands, then stood back up and said quietly, "Check the north side." No speech, no trumpet, just another choice to continue. The Empire, watching from far ships, finally said the words no one expected to hear: withdraw. Not because they had no ammo, not because they had no machines, because they had no answer for humans who refused to quit. Across the battlefield, an alien soldier who once feared humans now understood them. He looked at regular troops packing supplies, sharing rations, laughing through exhaustion, and he whispered with deep respect, "They do not fight because they are unbreakable. They fight because they break and stand anyway." Victory on Lether 4 did not sound like cheering crowds or loud music. It sounded like quiet breathing, like tired footsteps, like people counting friends and finding them alive. Smoke slowly lifted from broken buildings. The two moons of Lether 4 rose, calm and pale, as if the sky itself was finally exhaling. The Empire was gone, not destroyed by superweapons, not crushed by legendary heroes, stopped by regular humans who refused to move backward. In the main square, where fear once lived, children now peeked out from hiding places. A little alien girl watched a human soldier carefully bandage an enemy prisoner's arm. She tugged her mother's sleeve and whispered, "But he is the bad one." The human smiled gently without looking up. "He is hurt," he said. "So he is mine to help." The girl did not understand everything, but she understood kindness. She would remember that moment longer than she remembered the sound of guns. Nearby, an alien general walked slowly among the human regulars. He had read books about war his whole life. Those books had not prepared him for this sight. Soldiers laughing softly even as they shook from exhaustion, sharing food they barely had enough of, arguing about who deserved the last cup of hot tea. He stopped beside a human sergeant whose armor was scratched, whose face was lined with dirt and dried blood. The general said, voice unsteady, "Your special forces must be terrifying." The sergeant shook his head. "You didn't meet them," he replied. "You met us." The general swallowed. "You are regular?" The sergeant nodded. "Regular," he said, almost apologetically, as if saying sorry the story isn't more dramatic. Later, in command rooms across the galaxy, leaders replayed recordings of the battle. Again and again they paused on the same images, humans forming circles around children, even when guns were aimed at them. Humans pushing forward through mud and rain while joking about laundry. Humans shaking, afraid, but moving anyway. Humans helping enemies because their hearts did not understand enemy the same way manuals did. Fear changed that day. It became respect. Whispers turned into lessons. In military academies on distant worlds, new rules appeared in quiet handwriting on the last page of training books. If humans send their special forces, the mission is impossible. If humans send their regular soldiers, the impossible has already been done. On space stations, travelers told stories in long lines at docking gates. Humans don't quit. One said, "They break and still stand," said another. "They laugh while bleeding," said a third, shaking his head in wonder. But the humans themselves did not gather to hear these stories. They were too busy packing gear, helping civilians rebuild walls, fixing roofs, cleaning streets, carrying old people out of damaged buildings, teaching scared kids simple games so they would smile again. One human private drew a small chalk flower on a shattered wall. An alien boy asked, "Why?" "So you remember," the human said, "that this place grows things." The boy smiled for the first time in many days. That was victory too. When orders finally came to depart, the humans did not march in parades. They loaded equipment the same way they always did. complaining about heavy boxes, sharing snacks, humming songs from home. They hugged the friends they had made. Some cried quietly where no one could see. A young alien officer ran to the loading ramp and called out, "Wait!" A human lieutenant turned back. The officer asked, honestly, "How do we thank you?" The human thought for a moment and then said something simple. "Treat each other the way you wish someone treated you on your worst day." Then he lifted his bag, walked up the ramp, and the door closed. The ship rose, small and scarred, not grand or shining. It slipped into the sky and was gone, leaving behind silence and a changed world. Years later, people who had never seen Lether 4 still spoke of it. Not because it was the largest battle or the loudest victory, but because of the question the galaxy now asked itself: how strong must a species be if those were only their regular soldiers? And somewhere, on some distant world, a human sat at a kitchen table, drinking coffee, going to work, laughing with friends, never knowing that whole civilizations whispered their name with awe. They were not legends in their own minds. They were parents, neighbors, mechanics, teachers, farmers, students, people who put on uniforms when they were needed. The galaxy finally understood the truth. Humans did not call them special forces because they lacked respect. They called them regular. Because on Earth, this is simply what ordinary people do when everything is falling apart.